Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker, and in today's video, we have even more NBA trade rumors to talk about. This time, it's about Andre Drummond. But really quickly, before we get started, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I upload NBA stuff basically every single day. Okay, so it's been a very quiet trade season to this point, whether it be rumors or actual trades. We've only had one trade, being the Jordan Clarkson Dante Exum deal about 2 weeks ago at this point, but there have been some rumors, as you can see by the videos I've been putting up on the channel this week. And yesterday, we got some very concrete rumors from Woj himself about Andre Drummond. It seems like the Pistons are looking to move him, and the team most seriously in talks for Drummond is the Atlanta Hawks, but there are a couple of other teams involved like the Mavs, Celtics, and Raptors. And this is a really interesting situation because it's kind of up in the air what kind of actual value Andre Drummond provides to a team. I mean, numbers-wise, he's been putting up great numbers for years, specifically rebounding-wise, but it's unclear whether he actually helps you win with some of his free throw deficiencies, not being an outstanding defender, and again, just being more of a big numbers type player. But it appears as though the Pistons have kind of accepted that they need to move him before the deadline, and in the article that Woj wrote, he said that most teams do expect him to be moved somewhere else before the February 6th trade deadline, which is only about a month away at this point. And the reason that they would want to move him is simply because he has a player option for this offseason, and they're likely going to have to pay him a big number to retain him if he even wants to return to Detroit. And even though he doesn't have a ton of value in my eyes via a trade, he does have some value, and the Pistons would like to capitalize on that by trading him away to ideally probably a team that wants to contend this season and thinks that Drummond is potentially the last missing piece for their team. Now, as I said in the article, there's a couple of different teams involved, like the Celtics, the Raptors, the Mavs, that could potentially make a deal. But in terms of teams that are most serious about trading for Drummond right now, it appears as though it's the Atlanta Hawks. So we're going to focus on what potential trade packages they could send specifically for Atlanta. So in the article, it mentioned that it would have to involve the Nets 2020 first round pick that they have via the Allen Crabbe deal in the offseason, and then some salary filler plus additional assets. But at the bare minimum, it's salary filler and the Nets pick, and then plus some other stuff. But the interesting thing here is it doesn't appear as though Atlanta has a lot of pieces to make this work. I mean, they have the pick, they have the salary for sure. I mean, they've got Chandler Parsons, they've got Evan Turner, whatever, whoever they need to trade in terms of an expiring contract. But beyond that, I'd be really surprised if they wanted to trade away someone like Cam Reddish or DeAndre Hunter, obviously, in exchange for Andre Drummond, considering the situation of their team right now. That doesn't make very much sense, which means you kind of need to find a couple of other younger assets on this roster that you trade a couple of them in exchange for Drummond plus that pick, because at least I would be very surprised if even Cam Reddish, even as bad as he's been at times this year, is involved in an Andre Drummond trade for Atlanta. So in my mind, assuming that they're not going to be trading away any of their super high value young guys for a player that his value is up in the air and is going to be an impending free agent, then it would have to be some kind of trade where it's the pick, it's Chandler Parsons, plus like DeAndre Bembry and Bruno Fernando, and that doesn't really seem like a ton of value, I'm sure, if you're a Pistons fan. But again, there's not a lot of other assets that really would excite the Pistons outside of, some of those better younger players that the Hawks have, and there's just no way that they're moving those guys. I would be floored if they move someone like Cam Reddish in an Andre Drummond trade right now. Which gets to kind of the core of the issue for me here in terms of these Andre Drummond trade rumors. And that's why, why would the Hawks do this? I talked about this initially, I guess it was a couple weeks ago at this point, that there was the article that came out that said that Trae Young was really frustrated and he felt like he didn't have enough help, and he wanted the Hawks to try and make some moves to make the team better. And at the time, I completely understood it, right? Because this guy is carrying a huge load, specifically offensively, trying to carry this team to wins. But it didn't make any sense for this team to cash in on any of their younger assets right now just to win a couple more games this year. They're bad. They're really bad this year, and they're not going to get that much better with any moves that aren't completely drastic. And it doesn't really matter anyway because they're not going to make the playoffs. So I don't understand the idea of trying to move some of these younger assets, even if Trae Young is frustrated. He has another 2 years left on his rookie contract after this season. You don't have to cater to his needs to the extent where you need to start cashing in young pieces, and it doesn't make any sense to me really in any scenario of any of the players that could potentially be on the move around the league, but specifically for a guy like Drummond. And again, I'm not convinced, one, helps your team all that much, two, probably isn't a great fit with John Collins, and three, you're going to have to pay this offseason a huge amount. And if you're willing to do that, you could probably just sign him outright anyway. Like if it came down to it and Andre Drummond declined his player option for this offseason and the Hawks really thought that he was going to be a great piece for them, if they offered him a max deal, they could probably get him. And it's going to be, they're going to need to offer him close to that, I would imagine, this offseason to retain him. And they've had to, trade all these other assets as well. So from Atlanta's perspective, I just don't really understand this. I guess I get trying to get Trae Young some help, right? Like trying to be a little bit better this year, but all that does is make your draft pick worse and take away some younger assets from your team. Now, in terms of some of the other teams that were mentioned in the rumors, it makes a lot more sense, in my opinion, for them to be trading for Andre Drummond. First, the Celtics, we know that they need help at the 5 spot. They've had kind of a three-headed monster to this point in the season at the 5 spot, but they definitely need an upgrade there if they want to try and make the conference finals this season. They're a very good team with a very glaring weakness at the center spot. And again, I'm not sure that Andre Drummond would help them a ton, or at least not as much as maybe you would hope that he would, but it still would be an interesting move to try and cash in on some of their younger pieces. They have guys like Romeo Langford. They have some pieces on their roster they could potentially move. In terms of the contracts, it would be tough unless they're giving up Gordon Hayward, which I've said again and again. I really don't think that they would trade away Gordon Hayward right now for any kind of middling piece like Andre Drummond, just because he has that connection with Brad Stevens and he's been playing better, and he's actually a pretty important piece for them when fully healthy. So I really highly doubt that Drummond would end up in Boston. Now for the Mavs, this is another destination that's been rumored for a while in terms of potentially Andre Drummond going there, because they do need another piece around Luka and KP. Again, I'm not convinced that Drummond is that guy. Kind of a weird fit there, but they do have the contracts and the assets to make it work if they wanted to, whether it's Tim Hardaway Jr. or Seth Curry's contract. They have a couple of contracts they can put together to make the money work, and then you've got a couple of other younger assets on the roster as well that you could potentially move. That would make sense. I wouldn't recommend it, again, because you're gonna have to re-sign him in the offseason anyway, and I don't know that that is a great fit for an Andre Drummond type trade in terms of the Mavs. But I mean, there is some upside here, right? Like, he's never really been in an ideal situation for himself in terms of a team that runs a lot of pick and roll and it's just him, a ball handler, and a lot of shooters. He's never been in that kind of situation. So maybe if he gets in a little bit more ideal of a situation for him, things could be a lot better in terms of actually helping his team win. But I really don't have high hopes for his productivity in terms of helping your team win basketball games in any other situation. And then last up, the Toronto Raptors. This would be a weird one as well. I mean, they've got Marc Gasol, who's not really playing all that well this year. He's been hurt. They have plenty of expiring contracts. They can definitely make that stuff work. And if they feel like Andre Drummond is a piece that can help them push towards the conference finals, like it would be potentially for the Celtics, then maybe this is a deal that makes sense. But I don't see them making this move either, because they seem pretty determined to keep their salaries open for the summer of 2021 to potentially make a run at Giannis, and obviously trading for Andre Drummond and then re-signing him, ideally, assuming they're giving up anything of real value, would kind of throw a wrench into those plans when you're considering, Fred VanVleet extension. You've already got Pascal Siakam, and then you've got Andre Drummond. You're not going to have nearly enough cap space in that summer that you would want to have to potentially make a run at Giannis. So that would be kind of another sticking point for them. So at the end of the day, I do think that Andre Drummond is going to get moved, and it seems like it's probably going to be for Atlanta. I would imagine for a trade package similar to what I outlined earlier in the video. If you're a Pistons fan, I wouldn't expect any kind of huge compensation in return for Drummond, just given his contract situation and who he is as a player. And I would hope that a lot of these teams are being smart about what they're trading for and what they're trading away in exchange for a player like Drummond. Again, it seems like he's going to get moved. It seems like they're determined to find something that's going to work, probably going to be in Atlanta. But I mean, honestly, I would hope that Atlanta doesn't do it, because I think that there's just really no reason for them to be giving up assets for a player in Drummond that probably isn't really going to help them too much long term. Just relax, just be patient, just play out the rest of the season, complete the tank, and then you'll probably be pretty good next year once some of your younger guys continue to develop around Trae Young. And then I've already talked about the issues with some of those other teams. So I mean, it makes sense that there's rumors, but I don't really know that any of these teams, it makes a ton of sense for them to make this move. But that is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.